Next up is Dr. Shamard Charles. Dr. Charles is a physician journalist for the Health and Medical Unit at NBC News and proud graduate of the Warner Alpert Medical School at Brown University. His work can be found on NBCNews.com, the NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt, the Today Show MSNBC, and the United Nations Foundation. Dr. Charles has participated in global medical missionary work that includes post-Hurricane Maria relief in Humacao, Puerto Rico, is that good? And Santiago, Dominican Republic. Today's yo entiendo un poquito, all right. Dr. Charles will be speaking on how news, it's not about you, Sam. Dr. Charles will be speaking on how news and social media intersect with policy and humanitarianism. Making an impact on people's health and wellness. Please give a warm welcome to Dr. Charles.
Give it up for Sam. He's really a great host. I'll just hold it, Sam. So first and foremost, thank you for having me. Thank you to Sam, Serge, and Alex. The genesis of this topic actually came, we were out for one of our good friends, Raman Sharma's birthday, and we're just having a conversation about why do we, especially as young people, why do we wait for like a very special, magnificent moment for us to participate in humanitarian work. And so in the age of social media, it does kind of seem as if some of the work that we can do on the ground is a little bit more passive. And so this is not just a presentation on the impact of mass media on cause awareness, health promotion, and humanitarianism, but really a call to action so that we can sort of get on the ground and do the work that I think all of us were sort of blessed and meant to do. So first we're going to start with really basic. What are human rights? And those are the fundamental rights that belong to every person simply by being a human being. And I think that sometimes in media, that can get lost. And why can that get lost is because sometimes there's a deviation from the principles of universality, equality, and non-discrimination based off of whatever self-interest sort of persists at our present time. We're going to move on to freedom of speech. So there are actually 30 human rights that were declared by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights after World War II. We're just going to focus on one, which is human rights, which is freedom of speech, rather. And the reason why we're going to focus on freedom of speech is because the media is actually in place to protect freedom of speech, but that's not always the case because media and freedom of speech and the values behind it are not always in line with one another. And so unfortunately, freedom of speech can be compromised by slander, fake news, social media, and the government. So in order for we as journalists to sort of adhere to the integrity of media and the information, we actually have to sort of censor ourselves. We have to get the information from the people on the ground, from you all, and then we have to filter that information in such a way that we do these 5 things: that we tell the truth, that we're objective and independent, that we're informative, that we serve as watchdogs. So that's one of the cool and interesting things about media and healthcare, is that you don't necessarily serve as a watchdog in the way that you would in like politics, for example. In healthcare, actually, what you're doing is you work for the people. And so in iCare, for example, in Jamaica, what you're really doing is you're not waiting for the people to scream at you, I have a problem, come and help me. What you're doing is you're sort of anticipating some of the issues that might be there, and you're providing resources well beforehand. So as a physician, my job is to provide the resource. But as someone who is in media, my job is to really promote the access to that resource. And so oftentimes media seems like it's completely disconnected from healthcare, and humanitarian efforts when really they should be lockstep with one another, right? Doctors should be on the ground telling people, hey, we have this resource, but oftentimes it seems as if no one is sharing that information, and so people are sort of left to their own whims. And one of the bigger issues in medicine right now are myths. Doctors spend an inordinate amount of time dispelling myths instead of treating patients, and the responsibility is on physicians, especially physician journalists like myself, and honestly to get more physicians into this field so that we're actually making it easier for doctors who are on the ground. And so we serve as a buffer for physicians who are on the ground. And then the last point is to create public awareness. So you're not just a whistleblower and a watchdog for the sake of being a whistleblower and a watchdog. You want to create public awareness. And the reason why public awareness has been added to these 4 central tenets of media ethics, it's the newest central tenet that's been added, is that now we have the tools of social media and digital enterprise. And if you look at like the Ice Bucket Challenge, for example, from 2010, when it first came out, people were like, this is ridiculous. People are taking videos of themselves and pouring ice and water on their back and convincing people to donate X amount of money to a cause. And I think that the people who were the most up in arms were actually physicians. They were doing this to help you, and we were like up in arms. Like, oh my gosh, like there's a much better way that you can use your time, like guide people towards clinical trials and research. When the reality of it is that the people on the ground, they actually sort of guide your behavior. You don't guide their behavior. So by doing this challenge, I think by the end of it, many public health organizations were like, how can we now use social media as a tool to help further our agenda? And I think that social media can be used as a very powerful tool in order to not just generate funds, but to create public awareness in our society. This is a very busy slide, so I don't expect you all to read it, but how does the media impact humanitarianism, and how does it impact my health? So mass media plays an important role in setting the public agenda. So one of the most important things about media is media actually makes you interested. I think many people think that, man, when I'm interested in something and I'm gonna put it out there. And it's like, okay, well, there may or may not be an end there. But if you can capture an audience, if you can capture someone who is influential in society, you can actually turn your cause into public agenda. And once you turn your cause into public agenda, there are so many tentacles that branch from that. So if you have a cause and you're like sort of like making a business map or a plan, one of the things that you should definitely be thinking about is, how can I use media to help as many people as possible? The media helps determine which social issues the American people and their leaders will be discussing. So I'm a Global Press Fellow for the United Nations, and so this is a very busy week with the General Assembly there. A busy and a frustrating week, might I add, in our political climate, in our current political climate. But one of the interesting things about the General Assembly is it gives us physicians and journalists an opportunity to sort of pull all of the ideas that we've had throughout the year, and we can present it to world leaders so that we can push those initiatives through, because the end goal, especially for physician journalists, is to change policy. Media choices on what to cover are impacted by personal views and business decisions. I think that our goal as objective and independent journalists are to remove business considerations away from the agendas that we sort of want to push, but we also understand that that's nearly impossible in this climate. So what we try to do is we try to talk about issues that sort of assuage personal views and business considerations without losing the best parts of humanitarianism without compromising the work that we want to do. And the extent of media coverage influences how important people believe an issue is. And I'm going to focus on that last point because I think that it might be the most important point here, is we want to make sure that vision care for people, for example, in Jamaica is important. So we have to use our social media platforms as best we can to make sure that not only is this sort of like a one-off event, hey, we're in Jamaica and we're doing a good thing. We take social media pictures and we snap them and we say, hey, look at me, I did a good thing. We have to make sure that this sort of lives on, and we have to make sure that what we're doing is we're connecting people to primary care thereafter, and that we're doing long-term projects and using the media to show people like, hey, this is not just a one-off project, but we're really interested in long-term care. And so I'll talk for about 1 more minute and then I'll wrap up.
5 more minutes.
10 more minutes. 20 more minutes. No more minutes. No more minutes. So everything on the left side can be applied to your health. Media can guide you towards the resources that you need. That's probably like the most important thing. There are clinical trials, new treatments, research that are out there. And that's really important. If you have grandma who's suffering from diabetes or hypertension, or needs to take her statin, or cancer and there's immunotherapy, media can actually guide you there. And whenever you guys read digital articles, get the name of the author and email them. Email them, say, hey, you were talking about a clinical trial, where can I access that? This is not for us, it's not for the glory, but this is really for, this is really to help, you know, your family and your friends. This is a busy slide. The only important, and honestly, this was like, hey, I have a ton of time. I want someone to come up here and read this, but we're not going to do that. But one thing that we're going to highlight is this last point down here. So in 2010, there were 5.3 billion mobile phones. That was a 25% increase from the prior year, and currently the number of mobile connected devices exceeds the world population. People are getting their media and their content through their phone, not the TV. The TV is garbage. The TV is old and like it's dinosaur world. People in villages, remote rural villages, like from Haiti, Jamaica, India, what have you, they have a mobile device, but they probably don't have a TV. And so we need to connect and we need to tap into that. And I think that we're sort of that middle generation where we're like kind of old school, but not really. We really have a strong and a huge responsibility to making sure that we curate content within the digital tech space. That is like the most important thing that we can possibly do, that we connect people in a space that they actually have. And if you're not doing that, that is pure, I would curse, but I'm not going to for you, Alex, but that is pure malice, right? So sometimes people put content in a way where you can see it here in America, but that the people who actually need it can't view it. Pure malice. And so my job is to always take that content, for whether it's for NBC News, I'm a columnist for Press Magazine, or the UN, is to take that and to digitize. And they're like, why are you like spending extra time, you know, putting it in sort of a digital format? It's like, because y'all know what y'all doing, but I'm not gonna let y'all do it, because we have to be number 4, which is a whistleblower and a watchdog, and to speak on behalf of the people. These are just some quick examples of successful humanitarian projects that have happened, really, especially via social media campaigns. Truth, which is their hashtag is Big Tobacco Be Like, and so that what they and so what I love about Truth is it's not just like, you know, like if you buy a pack of cigarettes, they have like that dying person with like their like lungs exposed and like missing limbs. It's not just that, but they talk about like passive smoke exposure and what that can do for you and for your kid. Project Life Jacket, 3 Swiss organizations banded together to raise awareness for Syrian refugees who are swimming across the ocean to find safety. Black Lives Matter, the civil rights movement that turned into a protest, turned from a protest cry into a political force, talking about the death of black men at the hands of innocent black men at the hands of officers. The Ice Bucket Challenge, I talked about that, and then the Me Too movement, which is probably like the foremost movement now, which is a movement that provides empowerment through empathy to survivors of sexual abuse, assault, exploitation, and harassment. The thing that's important about Me Too is that it was originally geared towards people within this group that were in underprivileged communities, but that has changed. Alyssa Milano came out and she sort of expounded on Me Too, and now it's blowing up as like a global movement. And so the reason why I included Me Too, even though it's not particularly humanitarianism, is because it's important to know that our social causes change over time. We should allow them to change over time, and we should not be narrow. We should sort of in media cover what we need to cover, even as it changes in an authentic way. And I think that's incredibly important. And so, last slide. So, don't just believe me, you know, because I'm up here and whatever. I'm a doctor and I'm saying this. Actually, I'm not really like a doctor. I am a doctor. Like I went to med school, but like everyone calls me Sham. So I think that it's interesting that I'm like the person up here, like as like this doctor person who's speaking about this, but really anyone within the digital space could give this presentation, and they could show you this slide and show you that about half of the social media causes around the world are they revolve around humanitarianism, whether it's health, human rights, or disaster relief. So thank you for your time.
Q&A.
Yeah, let's
Did you have a question? Or can someone?
Yeah, I do have one question.
Sure.
I'll keep this kind of complex, but I'll simplify it. The Ice Bucket Challenge was extraordinary. There's nothing like it. Like they revamped all the research for ALS. That's like good. That's good. There's all this bullshit now about all these other new studies. There's all these bad news about all these new studies that are just they're fraudulent. It's like going back to how vaccines are called autism. As somebody who's the distributor of said media information and digitizing information from the doctor realm to the community, do you have any ability to say what you will and will not post based off what's just simply not true?
That's a great question, and I'm going to answer that in two ways. I'm going to answer that personally, and then I'm going to answer that sort of globally for everyone else. For myself, I started at NBC as a writer, and now I'm a producer. And the reason for it is because I know that I'm going to give up a little bit of my writing, which I love, and I love to do that, so that I can have more control over the pitch process and what gets on air, what is in the digital media. So that's the thing, is we need more physicians and young professionals in media in general. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Like, hey, I love fashion, I like to make clothes. Guess what? Make clothes and you should be in the media too, right? And so I think that we need to have people who are sort of playing both ends of that. People who are not just disseminating the information, but people who actually have control over the information that gets on. The second thing globally is that I think what's important is that myself as a physician, I need to be the person speaking on behalf of the physicians. If you're not speaking, someone else is, right? And so if you feel like you're the person who's most expert to speak on behalf of a cause or dispelling a myth, if you believe that that's a myth, then it's incredibly important to go out there and to use your voice, or to lean on persons like me to be able to convey that message for you. So I am speaking on behalf of doctors, but also I have to bear in mind that I don't want to alienate anyone, and so we're not giving credence to things that we don't believe per se, but what we are doing is like, I think that it's wrong in the media for us to just say, hey, because I disagree with that, that's stupid. So we have to sort of, it's a delicate balance, but I think that we have to sort of play that.
Let's this is too much. Sorry, because they're gonna kick us out of the room. So
want to make sure we're on time.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We'll have a 5-minute intermission.
Yeah, let's keep our
Wine and
information short.
cheese.
Thank you.